Well, hello, I am Matt Williamson. I'm back at you today and got such good response yesterday about that free agent list. We're just going to keep rolling with it. So, Matt Bowen from ESPN does great work. I've told you about him before. He's former safety in the league. He put out his top 100 free agents. And instead of going down from 1 to 100, I started at 100 and came back up just to give you guys some names that are more realistic, cheaper. Javon Hargrave's not going to be a Steelers, folks. So we went through the first 30 names from 71 to 100. And I'm going to start here at 70 with Julian Love, a safety from the Giants. And it brings me to a little bit of a sidebar here. The more I study this free agent class, it is, as I've told you, loaded with off-the-ball linebackers, second-level guys, what Steeler fans call inside linebackers. But it's also loaded with quality safeties. So, for example, KZ and Edmonds didn't make the top 100 list. They're probably not far off, but I don't think they'd even belong there. There's so many other safeties that are comparable or an upgrade that if they sign somewhere else next week, folks, don't worry about it. It'll probably be fine. And the Steelers might be even upgrade there. And Julian Love's the perfect example to me. He's a Giant, and he's only 24 years old coming off his first contract, and he plays the slot, he plays deep middle, he plays too high. He's a lot of Minka-ish if you're going to look at Steeler comps, but he's young. I might give him an extra $1 million or $2 million as opposed to, running back the guys you had and just stay young there and versatile. So he's a guy that I'm really interested in, and I didn't think I would be looking at safeties as, boy, that's something the Steelers should have addressed in free agency outside the organization. But it's supply and demand. I always do this with my tight end article this week. There's a great supply. Well, there's a big supply of safeties. And at a minimum, I think that gets you KZ and or Edmonds at a cheaper deal. But maybe it just gets you somebody else instead, So this is a guy I mentioned before and wrote an article about free agent offensive or off-the-ball linebackers. And it's a Z Al-Shahir from the Niners. So his numbers aren't ridiculous, and he only played 303 snaps last year because, well, they have Fred Warner, who's the best linebacker in the league, and he's really their third guy because they're just loaded at this position. He's 26. He's a perfect Steeler for me. Run and hit, has really good athletic ability. This is the type of guy I think you get cheap, has not made much money yet in the league, and would be a massive upgrade for the Steelers. 68 is David Montgomery. No, thank you. 67 is Frank Clark. I don't think that's the type of edge guy you look for. I mentioned Justin Houston yesterday. Clark had some off-the-field baggage coming into the league and probably is going to be way more expensive than those second-tier Ingram, Houston-type guys. So no for me on that. 66 is Connor McGovern, a center for the Jets. No. Donovan Smith, recently released by the Bucks, left tackle. No, he's probably going to get starter money somewhere and really isn't that great a player. Fletcher Cox, Eagles. You would think if he's only going to sign a one-year deal and be a spot player, which I think he probably is in his career, that it would be with the Eagles. But they don't have much money, and I don't know if they have the luxury of keeping a guy like him. Maybe he would play for less in Philly, but you rotate him in here in a Cam Hayward role, interior pass rusher, some 3-4 end capabilities, great career. Kind of have him, just spot start to some degree, 50% of the snaps. I'd be interested in that, especially if you're going to draft a defensive tackle as well. So I'd at least be interested. Here's another one, a former Steeler. Kelvin Beachum is 34 years old, undersized, overachiever since day one, left tackle, highly respected, smart, been around the block. I wonder if you could get him on a decent deal. My hunch is at this stage of his career, I'm kind of shocked he's ranked 63rd on this list, but I guess he is an offensive tackle. I don't know if anyone will look at him as a starter, but I'm just thinking bring him in and just have him be the veteran backup, big brother in the offensive line room. He's familiar with the city and the organization. And if Dan Moore struggles, maybe he's your starting left tackle or Moore goes to guard. You know what I mean? So I also think you're probably going to draft a tackle. Beacham could take that guy under his wing. So I'd be curious what he costs. So rarely am I going to be shopping for offensive tackles. But in this case, with considering his career and all the earnings he's had to this point, maybe. I mean, I might call him, you know. Darius Slayton from the Giants is a no. Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle from the Jets, also 29 years old. Disruptive interior guy, can play in a 3-4 or 4-3. Similar to Ogunjobi, but maybe an upgrade. I mean, just kind of look at Ogunjobi, but with a little more disruption. He would absolutely be on my radar. I like Rankins a lot. Former first-round pick. He's a guy I've liked every step of his career, most of it with the Saints. Teddy Bridgewater at 60 is a no. Jimmy Ward is a safety. He's 32, though, from the Niners. I think if you're going to get one of these safeties, as I mentioned, you want someone 24 to 26 or 27. I don't think you need to bring a 32-year-old on this defense at that position. So he's a no for me. Alan Lazard's at 58. He's a no. Donovan Wilson's kind of interesting, a safety from the Cowboys. More of a strong than a free. 28 years old, just another example of, boy, there's a lot of safeties in this class. So you're going to have a lot to pick from. Great supply there. So let's take a quick break and maybe we'll buzz through the next 20 names or so here in a minute. All right, I'm back. I mentioned Rankins before. David Onyemata is a similar defensive tackle. He's 30, though. Wide body, interior pass rusher, thick, strong. Maybe. I might prefer Rankins. I'm a little shocked Onyemata's ranked ahead of him, especially considering his age. But he's another one of these Ogunjobi types. And again, if Ogunjobi leaves, quickly and sign somewhere else in free agency, don't fret. There's some other, examples here of dudes that could be that same type of impact player. Leighton Vander Esch is 55th on this list. Had a good year. He's big. I mean, he's 6'4", almost 260. Has improved in the pass game. 27 years old. Frankly, I just like other inside linebackers in this class better. I wouldn't have him ranked this high. I mean, he's a tough guy, but he's had a lot of injuries through his career. I do think he's taken a step forward this past season, but I think you could do better, to be honest with you. Ethan Pochik, the center for the Browns, had a really good year, but no, I just don't think you're going to go get another free agent center. If anything, you draft one. Here's a guy I've told you guys about that is really interesting to me is, I'm going to kill his name, sorry. Agabanya Okoroko from the Houston Texans. He's an outside linebacker, edge rusher, 28 years old. He had 5 sacks last year. Didn't play a ton of snaps, but his win rate was really, really good. He's a developing pass rusher that's a little older than you'd like, which might keep his money from down a little bit. He's like the ideal third guy for me for an edge rusher for the Steelers. Tough, good against the run, not just a pass rusher. That's somebody I would be very interested in. I'm a huge Jacoby Brissett fan, but no on quarterbacks. I'm surprised he's this low on the list, to be honest with you. He's 52nd. Told you guys a little bit about Isaiah Wynn, and I regret it a little bit because I just think he's going to be more expensive than you want to pay in the free agent market for an offensive lineman. 27 years old. Didn't have a great year last year, but was quite good before that. Patriots in general were kind of disaster last year. Injuries for sure. He only has 40 starts in 4 years, but he can also play guard. He could also play right tackle. Somebody's going to overpay him probably. Another edge rusher, Samson Ebukam, is an edge rusher from the Niners, 28 years old. He would absolutely fit in as well. I have a feeling he's going to be a little bit pricier as a third outside linebacker. And that's the problem with signing some of these guys is you got a ton of money in Watt. Highsmith's going to be very expensive when the time comes, or quite expensive. He's going to make starter money, of course. And you really want your third outside linebacker to be a $5, $6, $7 million a year guy. That's debatable. Maybe on a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, but you need to address that position. I keep thinking about veterans because I do think there's usually a wealth of older dudes that you can get there. But maybe the draft is the best way to go financially for your third outside linebacker. Marcus Peters from the Ravens is also a free agent corner. He's not really for me. He's had a good career. He's 30, though. Still playing well enough. He is very boom or bust. He's very much a risk taker. Takes the ball away, creates big plays, but gets beat on big plays because he takes those risks. And I think that style of play works a lot better when you're 25 as opposed to when you're 30. If you just lose a slight step, that scares me. So I think the Ravens will let him walk, and that's probably all you need to know. Another tackle I've told you guys about, I'm shocked he's this high on the list, is number 48. Andre Dillard, Eagles, of course. Andy Weidel and company will be very familiar with him. Former first-round pick. Hasn't played a lot. Has played a fair amount of guard. Is really a true left tackle, but has played a fair amount of guard. So that has some interesting versatility to him as your sixth guy. I don't think he's better than Dan Moore, but who knows? Again, he's a talented, athletic, pass-protecting type. And they kind of lucked or developed into Jordan Mailata, and Dillard ended up being on the bench as a sixth guy. Don't know how the league will value him. I would love to bring him in. My hunch is someone will overpay him, though, and won't be the Steelers. Interesting guy here because this is different than Peters. And it's Patrick Peterson. He's 33. I think he's going to the Hall of Fame. I thought he had a very good year this past season. That if Sutton walks, can Peterson be your Joe Hayden? Your veteran 1-year deal, draft a corner very high. Patrick Peterson takes him under his wing. I could see that mentor situation, go to a quality team. Hasn't won a ton of games in his career. Arizona, this past year in Minnesota. I wonder, I'm sure Coach Tomlin knows all about him and has, interacted with him. Maybe just come play with Tomlin and be your Hayden for a year. I've heard worse ideas. Bobby Okereke, inside linebacker, Colts. This would be a nice pickup. He's long, really stepped up with Leonard out of the equation this past year. 27 years old, good in coverage, fine against the run. I always tell you that inside linebackers often take a while to hit their stride. Well, he's hitting his stride. He would be one of the many possible UFA ILBs that I like, and he'd be not the top of the list, but a good one. Jonathan Jones, corner from the Patriots, probably isn't for me. Heavy man guy, but good player, 29 years old. Charles Amenahu is another one of these edge guys. I think he'll be pricier than the others I mentioned. He's only 26 years old. He's also bigger than those guys. He's like 275, 6'5"-ish. More of a 4-3 end. I just think that he's probably out of the range. Jermaine Pratt is somebody we've talked about a lot. Bengals, inside linebacker, safety turn linebacker, really good run and hit guy, good coverage player, filling in his body, getting stronger, good against the run. He would be absolutely on my list of free agent inside linebackers and pluck him away from a division rival, a guy you know quite a bit about. So Jermaine Pratt is a good one. Sam Darnold would be a no. Jadeveon Clowney's a no. Arden Key's a no. Who else we got here? Von Bell is yet another safety. Bengals, 28. More strong than free. He would be your Edmonds replacement. And I guess an upgrade, but by the sound of things, he would also be a massive uptick in cost. I probably am not in that market. Dalton Risner's a guard from the Broncos. I think guards are off the table. Drew Tranquil is an inside linebacker who's near the top of the list of me as well. He's 28. Playmaker, smart, had 5 sacks this past year. One of many inside linebackers, as I keep saying, that they could shop with and be very happy with and would be an upgrade. So every down player. So a lot of those dudes to look at. Miles Sanders, Woodland Hills guy, no. Caleb McGarry, it's going to be expensive, no. Nate Davis is a guard, no. Ben Powers is a guard, no. So we're getting into these guys now that are expensive and in the top of the list. But Brandon Graham at 32 is really just the exact same thing I said about Fletcher Cox, his teammate. 35 years old, all-time great Eagle. Would he ever leave Philly? Who knows? Can they afford to bring him back? I'm not certain about that. But if he changes teams and he wants to do a one-year deal as your third guy, rotational edge player, I would have some interest. The last one let's do two more here because they both are really relevant. Byron Murphy from the Cardinals is my Sutton replacement first option. If Sutton can't get a deal done, I'm calling Murphy right now, offering him a similar deal. He's only 25. He was pretty highly drafted, probably more zone than man, but has gotten better with man through his career. Ascending player, slot and inside out guy. Gets his hands on the football here and there. I think that's what you invest in. 25-year-old corner that's on his way up, has some pedigree. That's a good one to me. Lastly, number 30 on this list is a name we've talked about a lot. TJ Edwards from the Eagles. He is a Wisconsin dude, has heavy Watt ties. One of many inside linebackers that they could get that would be very good and clearly an upgrade. Has really improved in coverage. Not the best athlete in the world, but he's 27 years old, coming off his best year. Tons of tackles, tons of production, good blitzer. Put the green dot on his helmet, tell him never leave the field, and go from there. So that's what we're looking at. I'm not going to talk about the top 29 all that much because they're going to be pricey and probably not in the mix. But can't wait for free agency, as you can probably tell. Can't wait to respond to the moves once they start happening. This time next week, the Steelers roster could look rather different, so it's coming, guys. So we'll do some more draft stuff here as well, but mostly excited to react to what happens next. So over and out. See you.